I'm Marcus Coward, and this is Wake Up New Bedford. I'm here with Mwalim, a man of many talents, okay? Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. And so in part one, we talked about his early life and how he got started with writing, with poetry, with music, with composing, and where he's gone as far as for Cape Cod, the Bronx, Mashpee. And so in part two, we're going to pick up where we left off and start talking about this era of collaboration that did exist and that was a big part of how he got started. So, Mwalim, talk about how big of a part collaboration was in finding your success.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take us back to Sesame Street.
Okay. All right, cool.
If you remember, there would be this skit on Sesame Street. Marcus wants to paint a picture. He has a lot of brushes, but no paper and no paint. Mwalim wants to paint a picture. He has paint, but no brushes and no paper. Rhea wants to paint a picture. She has paper, but no paint and no brushes. So what happens? The one with the brushes shares the brushes. The one with the paper shares the paper. The one with the paint shares the paint. And now everybody got to paint their picture.
Yes.
One of the things that was instilled by James Spruill, he used to say, we can do all the theater you want once you help me build the stage.
Sure, yeah.
And the tie for that, by the way, he was a student at Goddard College, where they have a auditorium called the Hay Barn Theater. The Hay Barn Theater is a result of the original theater majors, of which he was one, where they turned the barn into a theater by building the audience, building the light system, building the stage.
Wow.
So literally building the stage. But then teaching the business side, the administrative side of doing the arts. You can be as artistic and creative as you want, but you're going to have to understand how to manage it from a business standpoint. And one of the things that I started paying attention to was, how do things happen? Aside from how do you bring a theater piece together? How do you get it from concept to actual production, or from page to stage, as we like to say? But not only that, I also started looking at what made the Paradise Garage the Paradise Garage. What made the Nuyorican Poets Cafe the Nuyorican Poets Cafe? What made the Black Arts Repertory Theater the Black Arts Repertory Theater? What is it about these things? And even sitting down with different groups who sort of flourish, sitting down with Abiodun Owele of the Last Poets and asking, well, what was it you guys were doing that was different than X, Y, and Z? Because there were a lot of people doing poetry with African drumming at that point.
Sure.
But what was it that made you guys stand out? And just asking these questions and looking at these things and sort of realizing this is the kind of energy that if you invested it into some place like New Bedford, and a big piece of that becomes the collaboration, the collaborative point. It becomes this person wants to do this and they have this, but they don't have that. This person has that, they want to do the same thing, but they don't have this. And what I looked at in terms of the Black Arts movement, and came to realize that, okay, why is it that names like Amiri Baraka and Ed Bullins keep intercrossing when you look at these things? And Woody King, why does his name keep coming up? And Ntozake Shange, why do you keep hearing her name, intertwined in this? And then I looked at that, and I also looked at what I kind of call the white hand side. Why do we know who Sam Shepard is? Why do we know who David Mamet is? Why do we know who Israel Horowitz is? And in studying it, came to realize, okay, this is how the game's always been played. Joe Papp, founder of the Shakespeare in the Park, and the creator of the New York Public Theater. Joe Papp in the 1950s was considered the worst director in New York City, and nobody would hire him. So he instead goes and gets script, a Shakespeare script, because you don't have to pay royalties on those, goes and gets some actors who aren't doing anything at the time, and gets the New York Park Department to let him use the playground down on the Lower East Side.
Okay.
Hence the first production of Shakespeare in the Park.
Really? Yeah.
This becomes popular and big enough that he then goes to the Parks Department and says, give me a patch of Central Park. Everybody said, they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
They did it.
Huh.
He's long dead, and you still have the Shakespeare Festival in the middle of Central Park.
Wow.
But you look at what he did, and it's like, okay, I kind of see this. But now going back to Israel Horowitz, David Mamet, and Sam Shepard, you have three struggling playwrights who hang out in the village and hang out in the same bars.
Okay.
And they come up with the idea where, you know what? What if we take your script, I direct it, and you stage manage it, and we get this one to do the sets. And that theater is dark for those 2 weeks, so let's see if they'll let us use the theater.
Sure.
And so this is how David Mamet's play gets produced. And then they do the exact same thing. They just change roles,
Yep.
and now Sam Shepard gets produced. They do the same thing and switch roles, and now Israel Horowitz gets produced.
Sure.
That's the power of collaboration. Is, bring together people of a like mind.
Yeah.
And that's how Oversoul Theater Collective started. It
Sure.
was a group of people of a like mind who wanted to get something done. We came together and we did it.
And now, do you feel like that is increasingly rare, that air collaboration that you were just describing with those three playwrights, or even that air collaboration that created Oversoul Theater? Is that feeling of collaboration still alive and well, or do you feel like it's waned throughout the years?
It's been derailed.
By what?
Ego.
Okay, talk about it.
One of the things that I laugh about is when I listen to people talk about, I'm going to put New Bedford on the map. And I'm like, New Bedford's been on the map for a couple of centuries.
Sure.
Get over yourself. And it's kind of like, but if that's what you're coming with, that's where you're working from.
Okay.
With Oversoul, we had programming ideas. Carlene Coldwell has the Underground Railroad Cafe. She had a space that she wanted things to happen in. Collaboration.
Sure.
We become a resident company at the Underground Railroad Cafe and Gallery. So now we have a space to do programming.
Sure.
The type of programming that we're doing is both performance, but at the same time educational.
Yep.
We have a jazz jam that's open to musicians and singers and rappers. And it's, let's just make some music. Let's groove out and make some music. Bring your instrument and let's just play together.
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of musicians, especially in the mediums of jazz and in the various traditions of the African diaspora, that's how you develop as a musician. So it's not, I'm bringing the biggest jazz musician in the world to New Bedford. No, it's let's get together and make some music.
Yes, and let's see where it goes.
Yeah, there is no, and it's not about let's put anything on the map. It's about the city's already here. Let's do something with what's here and who's already here. We have the Griot's Corner, which is a combination open mic and workshop. It's recite your work, but now here's a chance to actually get feedback on your piece. Positive, constructive, and that's the rule. It has to be constructive.
Yes.
Feedback on your work as a writer.
Yeah.
So it's not just an open mic to get up and recite some poetry and stroke your ego. It's get up and recite some poetry and possibly develop, or get up and recite, or get up and have some people read your play, or get up and read your essay, and have some people actually respond to it, so it strengthens it.
Yeah.
This is about building community. We have the Thump and Soul session, which is the third Saturday of every month, and that's underground dance music, that's house music, that's Afrobeat, and that's blended mixes. We do house music mixed with Morna, and mixed with all kinds of sounds, mixed with Caribbean elements, and that is really just more of the release, the catharsis, if you will, that Aristotle speaks of, that you're supposed to get from theater. But these are the things that we're doing. It's about doing stuff in the community, with the community, of the community, from the community.
Yes.
And it's about making that stronger. It's about the fact that Old Bedford Village was, in fact, the cultural center at one point of the community of color, of the people, the Cape Verdean community, the Caribbean community, et cetera. That's, that's sort of home base. You have the band club, you have the vets, and these are spaces that are sort of, wavering, especially in terms of their past glory.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like, but how do you bring that back? How do you, re-engage, re-excite? So it's the things that we do, like the pop-up dance parties, where we have Wamtronica that goes out and just sets up in one of the parks and spins house music, and just gets people, even as they're walking home, bouncing and grooving and that kind of thing.
Sure.
But it's just about reinvesting that energy and that feel into things. And it's and so that's where the collaboration comes in. It's about working with Third Eye, so that we one night had the Groovalados set up in Third Eye's window, and we did a street corner concert.
Wow.
And and what we did was we did it on the same night that they shut down Pleasant to do that concert. So it was kind of like, so come around the corner and there's even more music happening here.
Yeah.
So having people out in Union Street, dancing and having a good time.
Yes.
That kind of thing.
And building community.
Exactly.
And that being the source of your decision making, not ego or money.
Right.
Yeah.
It's about, it's also about a space for people who want to take it further.
Yes. Growth.
It's about creating sort of that access and that portal, if you will. It becomes, for people that experience that engagement that they might not otherwise be able to have. And the cool part of tying it all together, my other hat, when we were talking about the second half, 2003, in January of 2003, I get a phone call from one of my people up here who says there's a job here with your name on it.
Okay.
And they were looking for an assistant professor, tenure track in the English department, but with a theater and media production background, or actually they said audio video production background.
Sure.
And that was pretty much what my resume had been.
Yeah, absolutely. Literally had your name on it. Yeah.
And not to mention I'd been teaching all of this stuff at the same time. And so I applied. And to tell you how things work out, so it came down to I came up and interviewed for the job and figured, whatever, not even gonna play it. And the other opportunities that were in front of me was an assistant principal at what was going to be a new arts high school in the Bronx, and a possible teaching gig at one of the city college campuses. Sure. And where all of this also weighed in was I had a kid on the way. Yep. So it was like, okay, I'm gonna probably want to scale down my 9 jobs.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it was like, 9 jobs. That was really flexing my West Indian side. But might want to scale this down. Well, it was funny because my son was born on the 11th, and on the 12th, UMass called and said, "So, you want the job?" And so that brought me back here. And I actually moved to New Bedford, bought a house in New Bedford, lived here for several years, and sort of was part of the community. And one of the things that was pleasant, especially at the time, there was a sizable Mashpee Wampanoag community living in New Bedford.
Really?
So having my cousins up and down the streets was also...
Sure. And so does that community, I don't want to say still exists, but are they still thriving, or have they kind of moved away from New Bedford?
Some folks moved away. Yeah. The younger folks moved away. So, some moved to Florida,
so many people moved to Florida. Yeah.
Some bought houses, elsewhere.
And so are you still teaching at UMass?
Oh yeah.
Okay, really?
I'll be at year 22 in September.
Wow.
But tenured, let's see, the former director of the Black Studies program. Yeah. And I'm a professor of English. Actually, I'm an associate professor of English Communications and Black Studies. And one of the courses that I'm teaching this semester is an independent study called Black Arts Movement
Sure.
And the students are actually working with the residency at the Underground Railroad Cafe.
Really?
And part of the discussion is based on the notes of how do you, which was a study I did years ago, how do you create a scene?
Okay.
And what I used as the template was basically the New Eureka Poets Cafe, CBGB's, and also looked at underground dance music culture. So I studied places, you know, that everybody knows, like the Shelter and the Paradise Garage, but also sort of your lesser known gatherings, like in Washington, D.C., there was an underground called the Sanctuary.
Sure.
And just sort of wanted to look at what are the pieces that turn this, and then of course another person needs to be shouted out is the maestro Ian Friday,
Okay.
who has a thing in Brooklyn called Libations.
Okay.
And and the fact that Libations has been in existence now for close to 40 years.
Sure.
Under different names, but still the same gathering. And just wanted to look at what creates this community. And sort of that's the study of, here we have this thing that we're doing at the Underground that's new to the Underground Railroad Cafe, and we're trying to see if there's a community here for this. But how do you get that community in the door? How do you identify that community? What are the elements that make people of a like mind that all want to feel comfortable or will feel comfortable in a space like this? How do you make people comfortable in a space like this? What are the things that people look for? So these are all part and parcel elements of the study.
Sure. And so we have about 10 minutes left.
All right.
And so I feel like we don't have plenty of time, and I would love to have some more, but I would love for you to explain to me, but also to the audience, some of the material that we have here.
Okay.
Yeah, would you like to?
Oh, sure.
And so, because you were explaining just briefly to me, but if you would like to just go over it and review it.
Okay.
So,
I mean, this was stuff we just came to like give you, but.
no, absolutely. But I just want to help promote this and just to let the people
thank you.
know like some of the
Okay.
things that you have going on.
All right, well, the card you're holding is Polygroove Records.
Yes.
It's a subsidiary of Polyphonic Studios, and it is the actual record label through which the Groovalados, Wamptronica, the ZYG 808, my act, Mwalim, the Funky Professor. We have upcoming acts like we're actually putting out a collaboration between Wamptronica and Chops Turner.
Sure.
And we're going to be using his actual name, so he's Neval Chops Turner.
Okay.
We have his record coming out in March. We have another artist, Bishop the Shadow Man, who's more like alt rock.
Sure.
So we're going to have his stuff come out. But the label is, our motto is the sound of a good time. The label president is Rhea Ramos.
Yeah.
So that's the card you had in hand.
So that's the record label.
That's the label.
Okay.
That's just my individual business card.
Yes, sir.
Mwalim, the Funky Professor.
And so it has storyteller, composer, writer, educator, historian, content creator. Yes, yeah, you couldn't, you had to put content creator because that's the umbrella.
Yeah.
That could be 10 other things.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay.
The content can vary.
Yes. But we're making stuff. We're making content. Yeah,
That's it.
Absolutely.
That's it. That's a sticker for Wamptronica.
Yes.
And that's our underground dance music brand.
Yes, yeah.
And having a whole lot of fun with that, especially because it's so intergenerational. Because I'm looking at, first time I snuck into an underground club, I was 16 years old.
Really?
I'm about to be 57. So that tells you how steep that is. And then and it becomes also the funny thing of you go to some of the underground dance gatherings now, and it's the same people.
Yeah.
We're in our 50s and our 60s, but we're still out there on the dance floor. And but looking at how that culture spreads, because then my son will come to it, different people. So just looking at that intergenerational blend is a beautiful thing.
And the legacy is still alive.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yes,
And you know, big shout out to the folks at New Moon Dance Party.
Okay.
The folks who do Body 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 on the first Saturday, because they're keeping that energy going.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes, yeah.
So it's like they're the first Saturday of the month, we're the third Saturday of the month. And it's just to give you that underground feel. And of course, ours has a little bit more of the Afrocentric infusion into it, but no, what they're doing is beautiful also. So.
And so we have
some of
our records here.
Some of our Polygroove record product.
Yes, please.
This is actually before we had Polygroove records, but the Groovalados this is sort of the nucleus band, if you will. This is our album, Ask Your Mama, which got 6 Grammy nominations, and in differing categories, because we got nominated in R&B, pop, and rock.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Super excited to go through that.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And
Then we have.
that is my solo album. When I said I learned to play guitar,
Yes.
that's one of the midway projects that came out of my guitar playing, Thunderchild.
Sure. Okay.
And so that's a blues and soul album.
Okay.
And that I've had on tour for most of this year.
Okay.
Some good stuff. That actually is nominated for the Native American Music Awards.
Really?
We're voting. If you go to nativeamericanmusicawards.com, you can still vote. It's in the category for the blues.
Okay. So I'm glad we're talking about this.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Please go vote. Okay.
Oh yeah. And that is the ZYG 808's album, Build Destroy.
Okay.
That is also nominated, by the way, in the R&B category for the Native American Music Awards, category 10.
Okay.
So remember to vote for category 10.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay.
As well for ZYG 808. And
And then. oh, please.
I was just going to say, we're big on physical product. People have gone so much to streaming, and then the
Yes.
idea is, so what you have with people renting music. When you deal with Spotify or deal
Sure,
with
yeah, it's a
Apple,
subscription.
you're renting
Yeah,
music.
totally,
You don't
totally.
own. You know, the minute that your subscription stops, you no longer have access to it.
I never even thought of it like that. Yeah, because you can own it or you could rent it, which is streaming.
And and in terms of as an artist, you sell 3 CDs. That's about the same as like 300,000 Spotify spins.
Yeah.
In terms of revenue, so yeah, buy a CD.
Yeah.
Buy CDs.
Stay physical.
Yeah. Or even downloads.
Yep,
you
yep,
know,
yep.
you know. But you want to own a copy of the music. You know.
That's such a great point. And I feel like in my generation it's just lost because we're just obsessed with the convenience. You know, instead of actually thinking about owning the product and just ownership.
Yeah.
You know, and also just supporting the artist. you know?
Precisely.
Yeah,
Precisely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so the last piece, which I don't say I'm most interested about because I do want to go through these, but it's so many people can make music and put it out, but it's a whole nother challenge to write a book. Okay. So please talk a little bit about this and the challenge about writing this.
Okay. The challenge was paring it down. The original manuscript is a lot longer and
Sure.
and is going to end up as like book 2 and a little bit of book 3
Yeah, okay.
in the series. Land of the Black Squirrels. Well, explain the title first.
Please.
If you've ever been to the Bronx,
I have
squirrels
not.
are black.
Oh, really?
Not gray.
Okay.
But like very dark brown fur. We'll call
Sure.
them black squirrels.
Yeah.
And what became funny is this is around the same time as white flight. Around the time that your neighbors darkened, so did the squirrels. So it was just it was sort of a funny parallel.
Yeah.
But it's so that the reference Land of the Black Squirrels is this is the Bronx.
Yeah.
In particular.
Okay.
And what it's a story about is that when I talk about that parallel, I wanted to talk about the artists who grew up alongside hip hop, but were not necessarily hip hop artists. You still had bass players and saxophonists and keyboard players, and sometimes we were backing the rappers.
Sure. No, absolutely.
But at the same time, we were sometimes making our own music and had our own grooves and
That's so interesting,
and our
yes.
own kinds of things going on.
Yeah.
And growing up in the Bronx during the 70s and the 80s, and going to high school where my schoolmates and classmates were MC Search and Slick Rick and Dana Dane.
Wow.
And Tachina Arnold, and so these are my schoolmates.
Yeah.
But it was sort of like trying to capture that experience of the musician side of what was happening. As the Zulu Nation is rising, as hip hop is expanding, but it's still very much an underground New York cultural kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so basically just sort of like, and of course, dealing with the cultural side of the Northeast Bronx was largely Caribbean.
Okay.
But the fact that it was Caribbean, Italian, and Jewish.
That's an interesting mix right there. Yeah. Okay.
And growing up with that melange and that mix. And sort of like, so this is a story that tells, it's more so about a group of people in that situation. So I said it in the Valley,
Sure.
which is up in the Northeast Bronx, just outside of Co-op City. And it's just kind of that artist vibe.
And so it's not exactly an autobiography, but it's based on a true story in a true setting.
Exactly.
Yes, okay, I totally got that.
It's informed by
Yes, yeah.
a variety of experiences. And so, and there are some bits and pieces of reality. There are people who get shouted out.
Yeah.
There was a music teacher, for example, Harry S. Truman High School is the high school in Co-op.
Sure.
The music teacher at that high school was the one who produced the show by Dougie Fresh and the Get Fresh crew.
Really? Wow.
So
there's some local stars there. Yeah, for sure.
But the funny thing was some of his students from Truman were present for the recording of that record.
Yeah, of course.
You know, because they were taking production with him, and he brought them in the studio.
Yeah.
So they got to be there for the production
That's special.
of the show.
Yeah.
So, you know, little historic mentions like that, that one of the main music publishing companies was actually in the basement of a video store over in the West Bronx in Riverdale. Gets mentioned.
Sure.
You know, so little key things. There was a music store that was there forever called Palumbo Music.
Yeah.
So all of this is part of that Bronx musician experience.
It informs it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's such an interesting perspective because there are so many stars in hip hop, okay? But those stars don't necessarily highlight the musicians that help make that possible.
Right.
And you know, a prime example is Miss Lauryn Hill, who will be the star, but then kind of leave the musicians in the dust, you know?
Some of it is the unfortunate, I can't say the unfortunate, but a lot of it is because, for example, when you listen to her album, a lot of that is electronica. So it was more than likely one or two people,
Sure.
with, you know, and it's the reality of it.
Yeah.
It was one or two people with you know, digital audio workstations that created beats. And she vocalized over it. So
Sure.
it's not like the Motown days or the Stax days where you had a drummer and a bass player
band.
and, you know,
Yeah,
horns. Now you have a whole bunch of software.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can't really dog her on that. And she does, when she goes out live with musicians, she does
Great.
give the band props.
Great.
But so, you know, yeah, there are very few people who the studio have an actual band coming in
Yeah.
anymore.
And so you're trying to really highlight those stories. Yeah. The musician side.
Those days, because like
Yeah.
for example, there was a club in New York City that was really big in the 90s and into the early 2000s called Giant Step.
Okay.
They actually ended up now becoming a promotion marketing company. But they first did it in England, and then they brought it to New York, and what they brought was the melange of hip hop and jazz, to the extent that they had a live band called the Groove Collective. If you look
Sure.
online, you can find records.
Yeah.
And you would have a DJ.
Yep.
And it was the kind of thing where the DJ would play a record, the band could pick up on the record, the DJ would fade out, and the band kept the record going.
Wow.
So there were a couple of times that I got to actually sit in as the keyboard player
Oh, really?
with this, and it was just, you know, just sort of like this mind-blowing, wow, this
Yeah.
is really cool.
Yeah.
And in fact, now to tell you how lines tie, there was a DJ there, Jazzy Nice.
We'll have to end with this, but please continue.
Okay, Jazzy Nice was the DJ. Let him hear my demo tape. He takes me to a record store called 8 Ball Records. 8 Ball Records was an underground house music label. This is 1993. I went in a different direction, so I didn't do anything with 8 Ball Records, but now Wamptronica is putting out records on 8 Ball Records in New York.
Yeah.
We actually just put out Let Ourselves Go on 8 Ball Records, and we have a
Amazing.
record called Power 2 that's coming out on 8 Ball. And we're working on a project for Janae Murphy that'll be coming out on 8 Ball. So connection made in 1993 comes to fruition in 2024, 2025.
Sure.
This is how, again, collaboration.
And collaboration, keeping the legacy of not just music, but community alive.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Not to mention building those relationships and also maintaining positive reputations
Yes, sir.
with those relationships. That's what it's about.
That's what it's about. This has been a pleasure. Mwalim,
Definitely, bro.
thank you for coming. This has been Wake Up New Bedford with Mwalim, the man of many talents. And this has been part 2. And please watch part 1 and catch us on the next episode of Wake Up New Bedford. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
running, I'm running, I'm